Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We know that our loved ones here, our ancestors are here.
A Saskatchewan First Nation says it has found 751 unmarked graves near a former residential school.
They made us believe we didn't have souls.
School survivors are not surprised. Also,
For those who are experiencing homelessness, you don't have a break from the elements.
as BC braces for a record heat wave, agencies are busy getting water, supplies, and cooling options to vulnerable people. And
$70 bill, run away.
as more patios open, restaurateurs face an old menace, the Dine and Dash.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. The trauma inflicted by residential schools is becoming even more public. A Saskatchewan First Nation now says the hundreds of unmarked graves have been found in a cemetery near an institution east of Regina. Cameron McIntosh brings us the reaction and the questions still unanswered. And a warning for you, there are details and images in this story you may find distressing.
Chief Cadmus Delorme says the oral stories of Cowessess First Nation always spoke of unmarked graves here.
We know that our loved ones here, our ancestors are here.
A ground-penetrating radar search performed this month confirms it. Under those flags, neatly lined, 1 meter by 1 meter apart.
As of yesterday, we have hit 751 unmarked graves. We cannot affirm that they are all children, but there are oral stories that there are adults in this gravesite as well.
The Murrayville Indian Residential School and adjacent cemetery were run by the Catholic Church from 1886 to the 1970s.
They were putting us down as a people.
Elder Florence Sparvier is a former student and survivor of the school. She's not surprised by how this was left.
They made us believe we didn't have souls.
We have generations that may have not went to residential school, but they are feeling the first and second generation of that impact.
That drives the questions. Who's here? The band says some gravestones were removed in the 60s. Are there still records? A school document from 1936 outlines protocols to report deaths. Was it always followed? Questions leaders have been asking the government and the Catholic Church.
We will help in whatever way we're asked. So we'll allow Cowessess to take the lead.
And for non-Indigenous Canadians still stunned by the discovery of 215 graves in Kamloops, it's another confrontation with a shameful history so willfully overlooked.
This was a crime against humanity, an assault on First Nation people.
We all must put down our ignorance and accidental racism of not addressing the truth that this country has with Indigenous people.
751 stark examples are right there. They almost certainly won't be the last. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Catholic order that staffed the former Kamloops residential school says it is opening documents it had earlier withheld, documents that could explain how Indigenous children died there. The Sisters of St. Anne plan to work with researchers and First Nations to reveal the truth of what happened at that school. One residential school expert says even the smallest details are vital.
Maybe we have a photograph of students, and in that photograph is a child that disappeared, and we can pinpoint the last time the child was seen was in a photograph in a particular year, and then the child was lost or missing or could possibly be among the children that we suspect will be in this mass grave. So the records and information is important. The daily details are important.
News like this can be upsetting and traumatic, and crisis lines are offering support for survivors and their loved ones. The 24-hour Indian Residential School Survivor Society can be reached at the number there, 1-866-925-4419. The Cowessess crisis line is another option and has lines for adults and youth. This information is also on our website, cbc.ca/BC. We are bracing for a big blast of heat across our province. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with a forecast. Joe, how hot is it going to get?
Yeah, that's the big question, Dan. For parts of Metro Vancouver, we'll be hitting the 40-degree mark, likely closer to the Fraser Valley, but even in downtown Vancouver, high 30s, not out of the question when all is said and done. This is a long duration event, and I know we've been talking about it for a while now. It's almost hard to believe some of the temperatures we're seeing in those forecasts, but forecast models are honing in on it. Let me just take you to the heat warnings, widespread across BC. I've never seen them this far, reaching all the way up into Fort Nelson, crossing the Rockies, and all the way up into the Northwest Territories. The heat dome is moving in over Vancouver Island for tomorrow. That's when we're going to start to see uncomfortable temperatures, but I'll take you through to how long this will last, and it's long, coming up a bit later.
Okay, thanks very much, Joe. Now, the potential record-breaking heat is dangerous for many people across BC. Community groups and the City of Vancouver are working to provide safe cooling options and supplies for those who need it most. And as the CBC's Zara Premji explains, doctors have some very timely advice for parents and guardians.
While winter woes have been replaced by sunny skies and scorching heat, the desire for some fresh air brings with it an added risk.
If a window can open more than about 10 centimeters, a child's head can get through it. And if a child's head can get through a window, the rest of their body can get through.
This year alone, as recently as Wednesday night, 8 children have been hospitalized for falling out of windows or off of balconies in BC, and 2 have died.
As soon as the child starts cruising around at all, you gotta think, is there anything that they can crawl up onto? We don't keep windows and furniture together if we can avoid it.
Fears around the heat are also felt in Vancouver's downtown east side.
For those who are experiencing homelessness, you don't have a break from the elements. You couple that with the threat of heat stroke or dehydration, and you're taking what is a dangerous situation and you're possibly making it deadly.
The Union Gospel Mission is handing out supplies and fast.
We've got sunscreen down here, we've got sunscreen up there.
Asking anyone who can to donate sunscreen, water bottles, loose clothing, and more. And other warnings are being sounded as the heat seeps in. A call out to check on elderly loved ones and neighbors and to look for signs.
Signs of heat-related illness include dizziness, fainting, nausea, vomiting, faster breathing or faster heart rate.
So while a stroll in the park or tanning at the beach may feel great, experts suggest you look for shade, drink water, and steer clear of that direct sunlight. More than 200 water fountains are open across Vancouver to keep you hydrated. Cooling zones have been set up with air conditioning at 10 community centers. Pools are ready for a dip, and misting stations will be there to cool you off come Friday. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Many people will want to hit a patio to cool down as the weather heats up. Many restaurants set them up during the pandemic as a way to get some customers. But as Michelle Gassoub shows us, that bit of good news has come with an old and pricey problem.
Scam as old as time caught on camera. This man scarfing down his meal, then running away before paying. It happened at this patio. It's been a lifeline for the Four Olives restaurant during the pandemic, but it's also increased the number of instances where people are dining and dashing. Amber Moreau says it's the 3rd incident in the 1 month since his patio has been open.
Look at this, it's wide open for public in and out. It's easy access.
Even one person ditching their bill can have a big impact on business.
Basically cost me one person wage for a day. One shift. If somebody's working for a 6-hour shift, $15 per hour calculated, $70 bill, just run away.
Difficulty finding staff is only making the problem worse.
My ad's on for almost 3 months. Since 3 months, I got maybe 3 to 4 resumes a month. That's it.
We had 190,000 people that worked in the industry prior to the pandemic. And then we closed and we changed hours and all these different things happened over the last 16 months.
Vancouver police say these incidents are so underreported, it's hard to know if the problem is widespread.
If somebody walk in here and somebody says, I don't have money, I'm hungry, we don't mind to provide him food, But when your server is serving it, you don't expect that.
Moreau just hopes people will remember if you leave your bill, someone still has to pay. there's no such thing as a free lunch. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
People in line at the Vancouver Convention Centre Clinic today were treated to a private concert. Members of the Vancouver Symphony performed as part of a new program to bring live entertainment to clinics around the province. The Convention Centre hosts BC's largest vaccine clinic. More than 5,000 people a day have been heading down to get a shot. Speaking of vaccines, a record high 81,000 people got a first or second dose of a COVID vaccine yesterday. And today, the province announced 75 new confirmed cases of the disease. 113 patients are in hospital right now, 34 of them in intensive care. Sadly, 3 more people have died of the virus. We've now lost 1,747 people. BC's challenge with vaccines now is keeping up the momentum and targeting areas where vaccination rates are still relatively low. Briar Stewart looks at how the province is trying to do that.
As more people turn up for their second dose, health officials in BC are trying to persuade the vaccine holdouts to sign up for their first.
When we're immunized, we protect each other and we protect ourselves.
Across the province, more than 77% of people over the age of 18 have had one vaccine. But in northeastern BC, the rate is lower, between 50 and 55%. Officials say geography is one factor. Rural communities are stretched out over a vast area. But Becky Grimsrud thinks the nature of work plays a role too. She was able to get her second shot at a drive-through clinic, but says time is an issue for some.
The typical working day for a lot of people around here is very long hours, very far from town, maybe even in camp. And it becomes difficult to access those shots.
The Northern Health Region has launched more drive-through clinics and has asked the public where it should hold pop-up sites.
The other ideas are the malls, those or the kind of farmers market, those gathering places that might be a good place.
Creating better access is one thing, but it's likely more difficult to try and convince people who don't want the shot to get one.
You will find there are some people you just can't change their mind. For the people who are on the fence, who have concerns, what will be the biggest thing that will change their mind is time.
And that appeared to be the case for some who showed up at this drop-in clinic in Vancouver.
Now that other people are getting the vaccines, I'm definitely more encouraged to get the vaccine myself.
75% has got the first shot, and I don't see any negative feedbacks.
The hope is that the number of people with one shot will keep inching upwards, even as tens of thousands roll up their sleeves every day for their second. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
This week we are taking a look at some of the Indigenous languages spoken across Vancouver Island and southwestern BC, and the people working hard to save them. Tonight, a radio show co-host is sharing the word used to describe family in her language. Have a listen.
Ajechwa Kusin Athnan Tawach Tishosam. Hello, my name is Kusin, and I am from the Shaaman First Nation. My people speak Ayajutham, and the word I want to teach you today is Jeje. Jeje is your relative, and it's your relation. It can be your cousin or your auntie, but Jeje also translates to tree. And this word is important because it's the beginning of learning a new worldview when you're relearning your language. It's important for me to be on the language team, and it's important for others to join me on the language team because this is the heartbeat of our nation, and this is the beginning of going back to how things were before. And when we relearn our language, we understand ourselves so much more. So, Jeje. Ima, thank you.
As the NHL playoffs air on CBC, reminder of how and where you can watch this newscast. We will be on every weekday at 6 p.m. online, streaming on CBC Gem, Facebook, and YouTube. And then we will air after the hockey game each night. Those times can change depending on when the game starts and when it ends. You can always watch our show on demand, streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Religious conquests of Spanish colonization demonize the beliefs and mythologies of the Philippines. How fantasy authors in BC are reclaiming them. Stick around. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Flying cars have never really become a practical reality, but floating cars, that's another story. CBC Winnipeg hit the road and the water with amphicar enthusiast Jeff Norton to see what makes that vehicle so unique.
Hi, my name is Jeff Norton. I am the proud owner of this red 1966 amphicar model 770. Today we don't know exactly how many exist. We have an owners club that represents about 400 amphicars. So they estimate that there may be another 100 or 200 that are in museums and various car collections. So it's probably 500 to 600 amphicars exist today. I was born in 1964. I did not know amphicars existed when I was growing up. I saw one for the very first time in 2007. We were on vacation actually in Europe and I saw one. And then for the next 3 years I thought about an amphicar and I desperately wanted to own one. They were the coolest thing I'd ever seen, I thought. I bought it in the summer of 2010 and had it shipped up to Winnipeg in August of that year, and thankfully it floated and everything's been fine since. My father, he had Parkinson's and he unfortunately passed away early in 2012. So after that, the family wanted to do a fundraiser for Parkinson's, and we considered various things, golf tournaments, etc. And then it just dawned on us that we have this great novelty car that my father enjoyed so much that we could make a fundraiser around the car. Summer of 2012, we took the car to about 20 locations throughout Manitoba, various parks and other places where there was access to water, and we were giving rides for donations to the Parkinson's Society. We actually raised in total over $42,000 for the Parkinson's Society. With COVID last summer and this summer, as you can see, it's almost impossible to socially distance in an amphicar. So we're hoping that the restrictions will ease and we'll be able to get back out there and continue our efforts to raise money for charity with the car. I can't see myself ever selling this car. This is, you have certain prized possessions, I guess, in your life, and this is something that I can see staying in the family forever and ever, and it's priceless in my opinion.
I want one. Back in a moment with how authors in our province are reclaiming Filipino folklore. You will want to see this. Disembodied witches to demon babies, Filipino horror stories often feature ghastly, mythical monsters known as aswang. But they have a history of being exploited by colonizers in the Philippines. As the CBC's Ali Pitargue reports, authors in BC are reclaiming their folklore from colonial influence.
These Filipino writers are reclaiming their folklore from colonial influence and retelling their stories in new ways. Natalie De Los Santos heard of Filipino horror stories from her parents growing up.
This story is called Two Boys and a Tiyanak. And basically a Tiyanak monster is it looks like a baby at first, but if you pick it up and try to help it because it's crying, it'll turn into this old man looking ghoul that will bite you and attack you.
And then there's this vampire-like viscera called a manananggal, one of the most famous monsters to have originated in the Philippines. It poses as a woman by day, but as the night falls, the woman detaches from her torso, grows grows bat wings, and she has a long tubular tongue that sucks fetuses out of pregnant women.
One of the theories is that showing like this disembodied woman attaching from her torso came from these anxieties that the Spanish kind of had about, or taught people about women's sexualities. So that's one theory of why the woman with wings detaching from her torso became so prevalent.
Spanish settlers colonized the Philippines in 1521 and ruled for several hundred years, until the Americans took over in the late 1800s.
The sort of like Catholic influence did give it a layer of sin and hell.
Chris Patterson is an author and assistant professor at UBC's Social Justice Institute.
The Spanish used stories of horror and to try and scare people so that they would come and believe in Christianity, because a lot of these shamans refused to convert to Christianity.
De Los Santos says her work is inspired by these Filipino monsters known as aswang, but her writing reinterprets how Western colonialists portrayed them. That's why in her novel, Dios Amata, the manananggal still shows up, but as innocent bats that transform into aswang after they were corrupted by a colonizing regime.
Besides the potential for like this creativity, we can talk about the colonial influences. We can deconstruct some of the things that have dictated the way that we told these stories.
For CBC News, I'm Ali Batarga.
She's meant to take the court in Tokyo. Why a Mission basketball player is being forced to choose between her infant daughter and the Olympics. Stick around.
Today, British Columbia declared war on the tiny killers lurking in its forests. An infestation of the mountain pine beetle has destroyed millions of trees, and the bugs are looking for more victims. They have already made themselves at home in a huge area of BC's interior, ruining billions of dollars worth of timber in the process. Now, as Terry Malewski reports, the province is planning a counterattack.
It is an extraordinary sight. Vast stretches of British Columbia's green forest have turned red as the mountain pine beetle munches its way across the interior. 500,000 hectares of trees are infested. That's 50 million cubic meters of timber worth about $4 billion. Now, Premier Gordon Campbell wants a task force to come up with some answers.
British Columbia is currently facing the worst mountain pine beetle epidemic in Canada's history.
There's one right there.
Finding the beetle isn't the problem. Just look under the bark of an affected lodgepole pine, the most common tree in BC's interior. The pine beetle is a tiny creature that is usually kept in check by very cold winters. But for the past few years, the winters have not been cold enough to kill it, so it goes on feeding and breeding.
The female will lay eggs along the sides, and the larvae will mine out as they feed out to the sides. Once the outbreak gets to a certain size, then we don't have the capacity to cut down enough trees to stop the outbreak. So we have to wait until cold temperatures or some other factors slow the outbreak down and help us.
The dead trees also increase the danger of a fire, which is a threat to the beetles, but also to people. So the government is looking for something to do other than just waiting for a fire or a cold winter.
One of the critical things of this entire effort, which is effectively a war effort against the pine beetle, is that we're all going to have to work in it together.
The forest industry is hoping the government matches its warlike rhetoric with money. So far, the government has increased the amount of timber that can be cut in the region, but beetle-infested wood isn't worth much. The industry is hoping for an all-out attack on the beetle.
In fact, what we're proposing is probably the most aggressive beetle control strategy in the history of this country.
But for now, the beetle marches on. The task force isn't due to report until mid-September. Terry Malewski, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is a proud returning sponsor of the Talking Stick Festival, the largest multidisciplinary Indigenous arts festival of its kind in North America. Get your tickets today at fullcircle.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox and keep connected with us.
A Canadian basketball player in BC says she's being forced to make an agonizing choice: breastfeed her infant daughter or compete in the Olympics. As Renee Filipponi explains, it's testing the IOC's commitment to gender equity.
It's a choice basketball player Kim Gaucher doesn't want to make: going to the Olympics or staying home with her 3-month-old daughter Sophie, who's still nursing.
I mean, I think I cry about it every night. It's an incredibly difficult decision.
Gaucher is headed to Florida for training.
She does!
This would be her third games, a chance to finally get on the podium. But Japan has banned family members because of the pandemic, including her baby.
I need to decide between spending 28 days without my daughter or fulfilling another Olympic dream.
In a joint statement, the Canadian Olympic Committee and Canada Basketball says they recognize how difficult the situation is and have made an appeal to the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee. But the Organizing Committee has not responded to her appeal or that of other mothers in similar situations. U.S. marathon runner Alafine Tuliamuk has also petitioned to bring her baby, who is also still nursing.
So first thing you do is turn.
And tennis superstar Serena Williams has said if her young daughter can't come, she likely won't go to Tokyo.
I need the help of the internet.
Gaucher has now turned to social media in her plea for an exemption.
See if we can make a difference, and it's 2021. Let's make working moms normal.
I thought it was really special for her to say, like, to call out the organization and to say, like, we need to make this more accessible.
This sociology professor says it's a struggle women face all the time.
We're having a conversation because we failed to imagine that someone's doing these things at the same time, that people breastfeed and do other things at the same time.
Gaucher and other women are hoping organizers will see that, giving her a chance to score one more time for Canada as a mom. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Back to the heat now with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe with the full BC forecast. Joe, it's pretty consistent. It's just going to be scorching.
It's pretty consistent indeed. Yeah, scorching for a huge swath of our province for a long time, and it starts tomorrow. I want to show you the evening temperatures because this is a really good sort of reminder of what we're getting into. So sort of the 6 p.m. temperatures around 22 degrees for YVR. That is likely one of the coolest temperatures we'll ever feel over the next 5 days. Those are our overnight temperatures in the next few day forecast as we get into this next heat dome. So I've actually put the temperatures on east of the Rockies and south of the border because I wanted you to see how widespread this heat is, hitting the 40s as we get into Saturday and Sunday. And that includes parts of the Fraser Valley, Abbotsford. This could be a multi-day 40-degree heat wave for you. Starting to feel it tomorrow. This isn't the peak of the heat. It is going to get hotter than tomorrow, but this is certainly when we will start breaking records, start feeling that oppressive heat, and start seeing those overnight lows stick up around the 20-degree mark. This heat is not exempt from the north either. Look at those afternoon highs tomorrow, hitting the 30s. Saturday, even warmer. And by Sunday into Monday, Fort Nelson could be up around 37 degrees. So these temperatures you see here, that's YVR. Inland, yeah, add another 5 to 7 degrees on top of that. And again, it's those overnight lows that really scare me. So Dan, we'll be talking lots more about this in the days to come, I think.
No kidding. And of course, that reminder, keep your pets safe and check in on elderly loved ones and your neighbors.
Absolutely. Yeah, and drink lots of water.
No kidding. Thanks, Joe. You can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local news is right here at 11 o'clock after the National with Tanya Fletcher tonight. Have a good night.